All right, strap in everyone because today we're going deep on AI cities. You sent over a mountain of reports and articles for this deep dive.
I did.
And even I was surprised by some of the things I read.
Yeah, it's a pretty wild, rapidly changing field, you know.
So we'll be looking at the UN's global assessment of AI, talking about cybersecurity concerns, and also checking out the World Smart Cities outlook. And then we'll even dig into some real-world case studies.
Yeah, some really interesting examples in there.
By the end of this deep dive, you'll have a solid understanding of how AI is already changing our cities, what's so exciting about it, and also the really big questions we should all be thinking about.
It's definitely, it's a complex topic.
So first off, the UN report says that 75% of the cities they surveyed are either already using AI or planning to use it for city services soon.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it's a huge shift.
Definitely a sign of the times.
But here's where things get a little complicated. That same UN report mentions that only 30% of those cities have a budget for the skills and knowledge they need for AI.
So that's like a 45% gap.
Yeah. Doesn't that seem a bit concerning?
It does raise some red flags, definitely.
What are the risks of rushing into AI solutions without having the right expertise and planning?
Well, you could end up with systems that just don't work properly.
Okay.
Or systems that are even harmful, maybe unintentionally.
So instead of a, utopian future city, we end up with a digital dystopia.
Yeah, and nobody wants that. Cities really need to invest in training their staff, creating clear ethical guidelines,
right,
and also making sure they have experts in data privacy.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's really about the people,
yeah,
not just about the technology itself.
Okay, so you're saying to build a smart city, you need smart people first.
Absolutely.
Now, the UN report also talks about this tool called Data Crowd.
Oh, yeah.
Which uses AI to help citizens get more involved in city projects.
That's a great example of how AI can be used.
In a positive way.
Yeah, in a really positive way for citizen engagement.
But how do you actually make sure cities are genuinely listening to the citizen feedback and that they're incorporating it in a meaningful way?
Well, you need really strong feedback mechanisms.
Like what?
Like, imagine a platform where citizens can directly voice their concerns.
Okay.
Or, suggest things.
Offer solutions.
Right, exactly. And even vote on different proposals that are driven by AI.
But then how do you make sure that these tools are actually empowering citizens and not turning into some Orwellian surveillance system?
That's where transparency is just absolutely crucial.
What does that look like in practice?
Citizens need to be able to understand what data is being collected, how that data is being used, and what safeguards are in place to protect their privacy.
So basically, it's all about building trust.
It really is.
Okay, now let's switch gears a bit and talk about what this article calls the smart environment.
Okay, so the smart environment.
Yeah. It paints this really interesting picture of a city where there are sensors and devices everywhere, constantly collecting all sorts of data on everything from air quality and energy use to potential natural disasters.
It's a lot of data.
Yeah. Sounds pretty futuristic, doesn't it?
It does. It has so much potential for improving our cities.
I mean, imagine a network of sensors all over the city monitoring traffic flow, and then feeding that data into AI systems that could adjust traffic signals automatically.
To reduce congestion.
Exactly.
And optimize traffic flow.
Yeah. Or sensors that could detect air pollution.
Oh, yeah. And alert people.
Right. So the city could take action really quickly.
That would be incredible.
But I can't help but think about the potential security risks.
Oh, definitely.
What if someone hacks into these systems?
Yeah, that's a big concern.
I mean, imagine a hacker taking control of traffic lights.
Oh, yeah.
Or messing with the power grid.
That would be chaos. Yeah. So cybersecurity is definitely something we need to really think about.
So this article really drives home the need for strong cybersecurity measures.
Absolutely.
What are some of the key things that need to be in place to protect these systems?
Well, you need things like encryption and really secure authentication protocols and constant monitoring.
Constant monitoring for vulnerability.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And then also strong incident response plans in case something does happen.
So if there's a breach, you can at least
minimize the
contain the damage.
Yeah, exactly.
So if something does go wrong, who is responsible?
Well, that's a tricky question.
Is it the city?
It could be.
The tech companies?
Potentially.
Or is it some kind of shared responsibility?
It's really a bit of everything.
It's a bit blurry.
It is, yeah.
But I think the key takeaway here is that
we need to have these conversations now.
Now, before
it's too late, yeah.
All right, let's dive into some of the specific AI projects that are already happening.
Okay, sounds good.
The UN report talks about the eThekwini municipality in South Africa.
I've heard of that one.
They're using machine learning to map informal settlements.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah, so tell me, what do you think about that project?
I think it's a really promising example of how AI can help with social challenges.
Yeah, it's not just about the cool technology. It's about using AI to actually make a difference.
Exactly. Like informal settlements often lack basic services because
they're not on the map, really.
Right. They're not officially recognized or mapped.
Mm-hmm.
So by using machine learning to analyze satellite images and other data,
mm-hmm.
the city can actually identify these settlements and understand their needs.
So they can then plan for things like infrastructure and services.
Precise.
So, like, they're using AI to bring these communities into the light.
Yeah, and make sure they're not forgotten.
But could there be any unintended consequences?
Oh, potentially.
Like, what if mapping these settlements leads to displacement or gentrification?
Yeah, that's a valid concern.
So again, it's about being very careful.
And thoughtful, yes.
Yeah.
About how we implement these technologies.
Okay, so eThekwini is using AI for mapping and allocating resources.
Mm.
What about other cities? What other interesting projects are out there?
Well, the report also talks about Belo Horizonte in Brazil.
Okay, what are they doing?
They're using cloud-based data analysis to improve their decision-making across different city departments.
So break that down for me. What does that actually look like?
Okay, so imagine a platform where data from all the different departments, transportation, public safety, environmental monitoring,
right,
all of that is pulled together and analyzed.
In real time?
Yes.
So instead of each department working in its own little silo, they've got this shared pool of information.
Exactly. It gives city leaders a much more complete view of what's happening.
So they can see patterns and trends.
And make better decisions.
Based on data. It's like having a giant dashboard for the entire city, powered by AI.
You got it.
Okay. I'm starting to see how all of these pieces fit together.
Mm-hmm.
We've got cities adopting AI really quickly.
At an incredible pace, yeah.
But they need to make sure they have the right people.
And the right plans.
And the right plans in place.
Mm-hmm.
We've got tools like Beta Crowd that can help get citizens more involved.
Which is so important.
But we have to make sure they're used ethically.
And transparently, yes.
And then we've got this smart environment concept,
right,
which has amazing potential, but also some pretty big security questions.
You definitely have to think about.
So out of all these examples, which one do you think is the most innovative or impactme?
Oh, that's a tough one. There's so many good examples.
I know. But if you had to pick one, which one would you choose?
Let me think for a second.
Yeah, take your time.
I think the eThekwini project is particularly interesting.
Okay, tell me why.
I think the eThekwini project is particularly interesting because it shows how AI can be used to tackle these real-world social problems.
Yeah.
Especially in places where traditional data collection just doesn't work that well.
It's not just about having fancy technology. It's
right,
about using it to actually improve people's lives.
Exactly. And this project, it could be replicated in other places too.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah, both within South Africa and in other countries facing similar challenges with informal settlements.
So it's a model for, like, using AI for social good.
Absolutely. But we have to remember that any technology, even AI, can be used for good or bad.
Right.
It really depends on the intentions of the people developing it and using it.
And the systems of governance in place to oversee it all.
Exactly, which brings us back to the importance of those ethical guidelines and accountability frameworks.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of people, this World Smart Cities Outlook report really emphasizes that cities are about people, not just technology.
It's a good point. It's easy to get caught up in all the excitement about new tech and forget about the human element.
So the report explores how AI can be used to improve things like education, healthcare, and job opportunities.
All really important areas.
But as with everything else we've talked about, there are potential downsides.
Oh, definitely. Like, what about the people who can't access these technologies?
Yeah, or who don't have the skills to use them.
Exactly. The report calls this the digital literacy gap.
It's like having a high-speed train.
Yeah.
But no one knows how to buy a ticket.
That's a great analogy. And it's not just about basic computer skills either.
Right.
It's also about understanding how these AI systems actually work.
Yeah, and how to interact with them and how to evaluate the information they're giving you.
Exactly.
So how do we make sure that everyone benefits from AI, not just a select few?
Well, investing in digital literacy programs is crucial for people of all ages and skill levels, and making sure the technology is affordable and accessible to everyone.
So closing the digital divide.
Yeah, that needs to be a top priority.
Okay, so we've got education, access, skills. What else do we need to consider?
We need to be very intentional about designing AI systems that are fair and unbiased and inclusive.
How do we do that?
Well, having diverse teams of developers is really important.
Makes sense.
And incorporating ethical considerations into the entire design process.
Okay.
And constantly monitoring these systems to make sure they're actually working the way they're supposed to.
This is making me think about my own digital literacy.
Yeah.
Are you doing anything to, stay ahead of the curve in this rapidly changing world?
Well, I try to stay informed about emerging technologies and trends.
How do you do that?
I read a lot of industry publications.
Okay.
I go to conferences and I follow some of the thought leaders in the field.
Sounds like a lot of homework.
It can be, but it's really fascinating.
Yeah.
I also try to actually use new technologies whenever I can.
So you're like a digital guinea pig.
Maybe. But it helps me understand how these technologies work.
And their limitations.
Exactly.
I like that it's not just about reading about AI.
Right.
It's about getting hands-on experience.
Exactly. That's how we really learn.
All right, let's circle back to governance.
Okay, governance.
It seems to be a recurring theme in all these reports and articles.
It's a big one.
It really is.
It's all about who gets to decide how AI is used in our cities.
And who benefits.
And who might get left behind.
Yeah.
These are fundamental questions.
The UN report found that only 3 cities in their case studies actually had dedicated AI governance measures in place.
Wow, that's not many.
No, it's a pretty shocking statistic, actually.
It suggests that a lot of cities are falling behind in terms of creating comprehensive and ethical AI governance frameworks.
So they're playing catch-up while AI is already being rolled out everywhere.
Yeah, pretty much.
That could have serious consequences, right?
It could.
Without clear guidelines and oversight. AI could be used in ways that are discriminatory or even undermine democracy.
That's a real risk, yeah.
So what can cities do?
Well, first they have to acknowledge that this is a priority.
Okay.
They have to dedicate the resources, the expertise,
yeah,
and the political will to actually developing and implementing these AI governance frameworks.
And these frameworks can't just be empty promises.
No, they need to have real teeth.
What does that look like?
Clear guidelines, regulations, and enforcement mechanisms.
And they need to be adaptable, right?
Yes, because AI technology is constantly changing.
So it's an ongoing process.
Definitely. It's an iterative process.
So who should be involved in shaping these governance structures?
Well, it needs to be a collaborative effort.
Okay.
Involving government officials, tech experts, citizens, civil society organizations, academics.
So basically everyone who has a stake in the future of their city.
Exactly. It's a collective responsibility.
Okay. I want to hear from our listeners now.
Yeah, what do you think?
Have you seen any examples of AI being used in your city?
For better or for worse.
And what are your thoughts on AI governance?
Do you feel like your city is doing enough to address these issues?
Let us know. We'd love to hear your perspectives. We've really gone deep in this deep dive.
We have. From
cities adopting AI like crazy to the potential and also the risks of that smart environment concept.
Right, and that theme of governance kept popping up.
Yeah, it's like the thread that ties everything together.
It really highlights how complex this whole issue is.
Honestly, I'm feeling a little overwhelmed by all this.
I can imagine.
We talked about digital literacy, but trying to keep up with AI feels like a full-time job in itself.
Yeah, it's a fast-moving field, for sure.
So what advice would you give to our listeners who might be feeling the same way? How can we stay informed about AI without, getting completely lost?
Well, you don't have to become an AI expert overnight.
Right.
Start by focusing on the areas that you're most interested in, the things that are most relevant to your life.
So like if I'm passionate about the environment, I could focus on how AI is being used to address climate change?
Exactly. There's so much information out there on specific AI applications. It's easier to digest when it's something you really care about.
That makes sense. What about people who are, worried about the potential downsides of AI? Where should they start?
There are some great organizations doing really important work on those issues. Groups like the AI Now Institute or Data in Society.
Okay, what do they focus on?
They're looking at things like algorithmic bias and the impact of AI on marginalized communities.
So it's not all doom and gloom.
No, not at all.
There are people working to make sure AI is used responsibly?
Absolutely.
Okay, that feels a little less overwhelming, so focus on what you're passionate about, find good sources of information, and don't be afraid to ask questions.
Those are great starting points, and remember, this is a journey, not a destination.
Yeah.
We all need to keep learning and adapting as this technology keeps evolving.
I'm feeling a bit more optimistic now. It's not about becoming an AI whiz overnight. It's about taking small steps, staying informed, and speaking up about the future we want to see.
I love that.
It's about making our voices heard.
Exactly. The future AI isn't predetermined.
We can shape it.
We can.
And we need to make sure it benefits everyone, not just a select few.
I couldn't agree more.
So what's the big takeaway from all of this? AI is changing our cities in ways we're only just beginning to grasp.
It's a truly transformative technology.
It's not just about the technology itself, it's about how we use it, who benefits, and who might get left behind.
Those are the crucial questions.
It's about governance, it's about ethics, it's about rethinking what it really means to be a smart city.
And it's about each of us taking responsibility
for shaping that future. So here's one final thought for you to consider. If you were in charge of designing an AI-powered city, what would be your top priority? Would it be sustainability, equity, citizen empowerment, or something else entirely? Think about that as we wrap up this deep dive. Thanks for joining us on this journey into the world of AI cities. And remember, this conversation doesn't end here. Keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep pushing for the future you want to see.